So my name is Erica Hill. I am the principal of Vision Street Research. I am from Baldwin, New York. I live in Baldwin, New York. Restarted this business here. I have a background in marketing research and community development, and really started this organization, Vision Street Research, to be able to provide access and opportunities, particularly to communities of color, Black and Brown communities to be more specific. So today's webinar is the kickoff to a three-part series, workforce development webinar series, which is really about looking into kind of what has become the new normal as a result of the pandemic, the economic downturn, and folks are now looking to do some potential career shifts, or for some of our young people that have just recently graduated from high school or even college are now faced with a job market that does not look like the job market they thought they were going to be walking out into. And we really are going to be having a great conversation with our panelists, moderated by Evelyn Ortiz, about looking beyond jobs, right? So a job typically is defined for us or for me as something that you do to earn money at any given point in time versus a career, which is a long-term trajectory. And I really am wanting to use my organization, our platform, to really help folks get access to career pathways, right? So being able to get into an organization and grow and have upward mobility, leading to self-sufficiency, either to take care of themselves or for their family. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our moderator for this afternoon, which is Evelyn Ortiz. Evelyn joined the New York Association of Training and Employment Professionals as the Deputy Director, where she leads development, execution, and evaluation of NIATEP's downstate, which includes New York City and Long Island, based policy priorities, inclusive of policy analysis, and direct advocacy. Prior to joining NIATEP, Evelyn held the position of Chief External Affairs Officer at Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, a leading youth and adult workforce development agency serving over 4,000 New York City residents. Through her advocacy, she was able to triple the amount of discretionary funds OBT secured, ensuring the sustainability of OBT's critical programming for years to come. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you and let you take over, Evelyn Ortiz.
Thank you, Erica. It is a pleasure to participate on this panel and to, just obviously be accompanied by so many power players in the field. So this is really exciting for me. And, it is actually my pleasure really to introduce our power panel speakers who are going to be really leading this conversation. And I'm going to start off by introducing Dr. Stephen Lindo. He's the founder of Springboard Incubators. Dr. Lindo is an innovative and visionary leader with a passion for technology, creating enterprise-wide initiatives delivering sustained value resulting in revenue growth and cost savings for the organization. He focuses on building high-performing teams, harvesting new knowledge, and staying abreast of changes in technology. Welcome, Dr. Lindo.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Evelyn.
Next up is Trey Anders. He's the co-founder of CyberAmp. He's also the one with the really cool backgrounds, just FYI, because, I'm going to have to get myself one of those. I like turquoise, just in case just in case you want to order me one. So Trey has over 15 years of experience in pre-sales engineering and leadership roles with a proven record of success. He's linked at aligning technical teams with organizational growth and change initiatives. He holds a deep industry knowledge across servers, virtualization, networking, security, operational technology, and cloud. His focus is on the Southeast-based Fortune 1000 companies. Welcome, Trey.
Thank you for having me.
And then last but not least, we have Daniel Lloyd, who is the founder of Minority Millennials. Daniel is a social entrepreneur with over 8 years of experience in helping with the development and creation of non-for-profit organizations that focus on solving targeted problems within society. Huge mission, right? Very necessary, specifically right now.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn and Erica, for including me.
You're most welcome.
So I want to remind everyone of our chat box option, right? So there's a question and answer option at the bottom. where you can input your questions for the panel as we start this conversation. We want this to feel really organic, free flowing. So feel free to like just include whatever maybe you have some feedback that you want to provide, insight, links that you want to share. So, we just want you to really utilize that option, because we know that we can't necessarily really connect with you as if though this was an in-person event, but we want it to feel that way in some way. Okay. So with all that, let's get started. So let's just get right to it. We're in a pandemic and, this is a workforce development focused series, which means that, our main focus is to figure out how we can give people access to the skills and training they need, like Erica shared before, so that they can gain access to a career with sustaining wages, right? And, this situation right now changes that all up. So the first question for our panel is the following. During the past 3 months, we've all seen the large number of individuals who have become unemployed due to the crisis. For a recent college graduate, for instance, who is seeking employment, or for someone who's looking to switch careers, this can definitely be an extremely daunting time. Can you please share with the audience what the current labor market really looks like on the ground, right? Because there's a difference between what we read and what we see through, like I can say, because I belong to the like workforce sector from the policy end, I see tons of stuff being sent from the Department of Labor, but but it's very different than what you see on the ground as you are like experiencing it firsthand. So what are you experiencing and hearing from industry leaders or employers? Dr. Lindo, could you just start us off?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again, Evelyn. And Erica, thanks so much for putting this really needed forum together to have this discussion. And I agree with you, jobs are different than careers, right? So when you're thinking about a career and what you're looking for as someone who just graduated from college or, is their first year, usually those are the folks that are during the pandemic were furloughed or laid off or, cut back on, and there's no guarantee that they'll be hired again. So the situation that we're in, to say that, again, prejudice doesn't exist in those areas as well would be foolish, right? So we do know that our people will be treated a little bit differently as we look at this job market trying to get rehired. For me, I'm in a nonprofit sector. So for the nonprofits, there's a lot of changes going on there, and folks are hiring people out of college for certain skills. So they're not going back to the actual folks that they furloughed as a way to cut costs. Corporations at all levels are doing this, right? So from the Fortune 500 corporations, I work for another company that does $4.5 billion globally. They're doing the same thing. All hiring is frozen, and no one is looking to open that up anytime soon. So, as far as what the picture looks like, it's kind of bad out there and it's going to be for the next few months from what I see from the Fortune 500 companies, and also for nonprofits. Now, there's a middle sweet spot that is still out there, though, right? That I think that folks could be prepared to take advantage of it. And this is what I would say to college folks. Pay attention to the trends that are taking place. Pay attention to your digital skills. If you don't have digital skills, you really need to take advantage of them. And then when you're selling yourself or you're presenting yourself in this online world and online environment today, you really have to be well rehearsed, right? And well prepared to make that same impression as if you were in person with them, okay? So the labor market today, look for those digital skills that you could start learning. There's tons of resources out there. There is LinkedIn Learning, I think, is a great resource if you're not using LinkedIn Learning as yet for all types of skills. Pluralsight is one of the best sites that I'm in favor of as well when it comes to technology learning online. But there's others, right? There's others like Coursera and so on. And they're, again, take advantage of some of the universities that are local to you. And they will also have online presence going forward. So I think, this is, look at it as opportunity more so than, a failing, to prepare your digital skills and then to prepare yourselves and align it with the current labor market that's coming up now and well into the future.
Thank you. Trey, how about you? What are you experiencing?
Well, just to piggyback on what the doctor said there, I think this is the perfect opportunity to sharpen your skills. And if you have a job today, this would be a perfect time to launch your career. Focusing on those skills, both hard skills as in technical skills and soft skills as in presentations and networking. I feel like this is the perfect time, right? We're in a digital connected world. We're all leveraging technology to conduct business. This would be the perfect time to go in there and actually accelerate those skills, not only with that downtime that you have from the job, but also working on your soft skills, right? You get a chance to practice on Zoom and LinkedIn and all these other platforms with your digital skills and your soft skills. The other thing that I would say, that opportunity from moving from a job to a career, one of the things that we have to look at is what part of the career field is accelerating, right? Like what jobs, pivoting from jobs, what can you see yourself doing 5, 10 years, 20 years down the road? And we know the internet is not going anywhere. We know how we conduct business via Zoom now, and WebExes and all these different things. That's not going anywhere, right? So the digitalization of business and technologies is one of those opportunities that I feel like will continue to accelerate and will be around for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing, so Dr. Lindo shared what it looks like for the nonprofit sector specifically, but what does the labor market look like for the tech sector, right? Because since we had to now all go remote, what do jobs look like? Like what opportunities are available? How have things changed?
Right, great question. One of the things that I'm seeing is an acceleration of those things, right? So I'm getting 3 and 4 recruiters reaching out to me directly almost weekly because of my cybersecurity background. So I do feel like there are certain slowdowns in a particular vertical, right? So sports and entertainment, anything doing with, that face-to-face large groups, right? Those businesses have slowed down. Of course, retail have slowed down. But IT and information technology always are looking at the way to accelerate more effectiveness in organization. So businesses are looking to reinvest how they can be a lot more effective with communicating to their customers and still understanding the productivity around their customers and the productivity around their users. So from my perspective, the enterprise is looking to be smart where they're cutting back, but they're also making investments where they see down the road that, hey, yes, we're making cutbacks in certain portions of our business, but we also have to invest in the future. So this is a perfect time for them to make those cloud transformation processes, right? They're looking to make those investments, and they're absolutely doggedly going after people that have those skills.
And Daniel, share with us your experience, because I know that you're working one-on-one with job seekers, you're working with companies firsthand. They're reaching out to you so that you can help supply them with their workforce. What are you experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting if you look at what's happened in the past decade, to be honest, from the recession in 2009 and then also the pandemic now. There are some similarities and there's, big differences. One of the similarities is the financial market and the financial industry. One of, being a financial advisor or being able to help people navigate rough financial times is a career that has weathered both the recession and the pandemic. So that's one thing that we've noticed as an organization, to get more young people of color into that, because that seems to be an industry that is protected by any type of external factors. So that's something that we're really trying to grapple on. And that's one of the partnerships that we've had with regards to workforce, specifically with Merrill Lynch. Even when the recruiter made a perfect example is that in this time is when people actually want expert opinion on what to do with their finances. So again, that's a great industry to get involved in because it protects you no matter what is going on. The second thing, though, the big difference with this situation is that, as Trey mentioned, we're realizing that technology is the future more than we did in 2009. And so not only do you have to grow hard skills and soft skills, but you have to focus on what is your specific asset to a company, because what we're seeing is agile talent, this concept that you may get hired for contracts, but you may not get health insurance, you may not get certain benefits. So you have to really refine what separates you from another employee, rather than just like a database or just filling paperwork and submitting it. What can you bring to the table? What can you do that's innovative to present a pitch or a plan or an investment in banking or these different industries? So being agile and being able to do things outside of your job description is incredibly valuable right now.
Thank you. I think just to go back, and as you talk about that, there are all these opportunities, right? And despite the fact that we're in a pandemic, we're seeing, we're in this like quote unquote recession. Some sectors are unfortunately faring worse than others. But as we've talked about, the tech sector is thriving, right? But what we see specifically from, our perspective and I want to say for communities of color, is that most of the time gaining access into that sector is not that easy, right? And specifically, what we understand is that from a lot of people are under this misconception that, you may need to have all these advanced credentials in order to access, and that prevents them from actually pursuing. So Trey, if you could just lead us off here, in order for someone to gain access to the sector, what type of experience is really necessary?
Right. So it's two parts, right? You can absolutely go down to the advanced degree and master's degree and bachelor's degree to get an IT and all of those high tech sectors, right? Absolutely. That wasn't my path. My path was actually quite simple. After I got out of the military, I just studied a bunch of certifications, and I started out, on the telephones, right? Doing phone support, the equivalent of Geek Squad, right? So there's gateways into these high tech industries, especially around different lower level certifications. So at CyberAmp, that's one of the things that I put together was to teach people the basics and the foundations of cybersecurity where they can get their foot in the door, because there is a talent shortage. There is close to 3 million jobs unfilled in cybersecurity today, right? You can see some of the stats on Indeed. You go into Indeed and put in certification or put in cybersecurity, you're going to see people looking for positions today. So that's the part of the career in cybersecurity or in high tech that we can leverage at this moment. And it doesn't necessarily take, 5, 6, 7 years to get those high paying jobs. I would say if you're dedicated, it's 24 months away.
Right, yeah. Trey, I agree 100% with Trey, Evelyn. I think so. I've been, June 30th will be 30 years. I've been a computer scientist. So I've coded in assembly language from the beginning to everything from Java to the boutique coding languages, Ruby on Rails and all those other stuff, all the way back around to where we are today. And there's two major markets that are out there with really good paying jobs. One is data science, and there's a data science framework level for that. We're at the bottom of that framework, or the entry level is doing data munging and data structures and some data analysis. The next level above that is doing more machine learning, more AI, and then above that is building expert systems on top of that data, right? So an entry-level data scientist today, all they really need is a handful of classes that you could get a certificate in from any organization these days. You could even teach yourself online, and you could start out earning $67,000 to $80,000 a year. Right? That's a data science job that you will do from home or from anywhere in the world. You could you know, have, if you on an island in the Caribbean and you have internet access, then you could do it there too. Trey is 100% right about cybersecurity as well, right? That field, there's so many opportunities from people being pen testers, penetration testing, to people that are doing vulnerability reports and countermeasures. There's so much opportunity there for wealth. So those two markets are absolutely fantastic. And the resources are out there to train it. And like Trey said, certification is key. The flip side of that, right? And this is where what, you know, my vision is for Springboard as we continue with some of those programs that we're doing today, is making sure that we align those educational pieces with the right type of opportunity, right? So they go together, education and opportunity. You could have all the education and smarts in the world, but if nobody gives you a job, right, you're pretty much going to be stuck for a long time. So I would say to college students or whoever's out there now looking for work, don't be afraid to take an internship, as long as it's in line with those careers, right? So get those internships, get those experience, and show out, right? If it's paid, all good. If it's not paid, but it's directly in line with your career, you know, think about taking it as well. It will take you further. So,
So I just want to give context to a couple of things here. We keep talking about technology and this new digital transformation that our society is going through, right? So that big data issue, like protecting it, understanding it, data is the new oil, right? So all of the businesses are trying to understand everything about everything. So that data that we're creating in our society is only growing exponential. So we need to have people to understand how to utilize that data. From, you know, Uber is creating a lot of data, right? Amazon is creating a lot of data. All of these different large companies are creating this data, and we're trying to get a better understanding and how to leverage that, and ultimately that turn that into revenue. So if you're in any part of that process, creating, manipulating, sharing, going about of trying to understand that data, that's where the opportunity is at, right? Because as society, you know, we all have these sensors walking around, cell phones, smart houses, and all these other types of devices. That's creating data, and you're not going to be able to understand the data unless you have the right skill set. And the great thing about the right skill set, it doesn't take a long time to actually get that skill set and make a very well, you know, can increase your lifestyle with a high salary.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because it goes back to the question from before, but how do people gain access, right? So in other words, you know, what training opportunities, like how can they actually get trained for these jobs? Like you said that, you know, you can go about it in different ways, but, you know, what exists right now and what's accessible to people, and what programs do you think are really good for them to actually pursue?
Right. So I'll just focus on narrowly because I know cybersecurity kind of like the back of my hand, right? So one of the cybersecurity certification is the CompTIA Security Plus. This is one that I started out with, you know, almost 20 years ago. It's still around. It's still credible. That certification is the gateway to getting your foot in the door as a tier 1 analyst at, you name the cybersecurity company that's out there, right? Now, yes, you have to know your material, but you can get that hands-on experience. And I personally help people get that hands-on experience where they can not only build their hard skills around cybersecurity, but know how to actually go in and demonstrate what they know with their soft skills.
I want to get to one of which goes hand in hand with what you just shared. So one of our attendees, her name is Nina from the United Way Youth Build program. What are the top 5 titles their students can look up to see the most in-demand positions in the tech/data industries?
Right. So I'll give you the one from the cybersecurity run, a security analyst one. So security analyst is the gateway to getting inside of cybersecurity.
And data analyst, sure. For data scientists, a data analyst, or a data engineer. Those are the 2 job titles that you could look for as well. And then when it goes to just software engineering in general, there is all these other certifications. So that you could get for big data certification, right? Amazon gives you those as well. You could get those big data certifications through Amazon. data science certifications through Amazon as well. Azure has those as well. Yeah, so definitely there's a whole slew of those certifications that you get through those programs.
And systems administration, right? So system administration will be a entry level. Again, I started out in phone support and tech support, so I wouldn't discount that, right? Because you may be more on the manipulating the hardware, but that hardware is helping accelerate understanding of the software. So I will put those two hand in hand.
Dan, and how, like, Dan, just from your perspective, from the financial industry.
Oh, one thing I was actually going to just say is that, and Trey and Dr. Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that I've been noticing, especially in a lot of our conversations with Black and brown entrepreneurs in the tech industry, is we're very much influential with where tech is going in the future with regards to user engagement, right? And the user experience. And so what I've been seeing, though, is that a lot of the individuals that are the influencers on these platforms are not necessarily educated with a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree. They have the certifications that you had mentioned, and then they're getting the jobs that you just mentioned because of their influence and experience. And so that's also what we've been sharing with a lot of our members and young people, is that if you leverage your platform, your brand, because that's a big part of workforce moving forward, your personal brand, with the intelligence, and then create a technology. I mean, you look at Facebook, you look at Instagram, most of these people that create these platforms didn't even finish college, because they had to focus. Like, they literally had to focus on the platform. And so what we've been saying is, like, we believe that the Black and brown community should be, or can be, the engineers to what technology looks like and what the platforms look like. And in itself, that creates a workforce. I mean, you look at Trey, he's an entrepreneur, but at the same time, it's workforce, you know, because of what he's able to facilitate with his platform. So that's something that we think is on the cutting edge, and what we think we need to really dive into. It has a lot of teeth, because that's where a lot of economic development and minority communities is going to come from.
Right. Exactly. And I would say another one would be, you see the multi-world, multiplayer, huge games like Fortnite, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Those platforms have launched careers that's making millions of dollars by playing the game. But you also need people that test those games, right?
Exactly.
And that piggybacks back right into, you know, data and understanding and usability tests. And you can be personalities in those usability tests, right? They will actually, organizations will actually seek you out to gain your insight, because you understand the platform so well. And that platform can be social media or any other technology or cloud services out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved what you were saying, Daniel, about the, I'm sorry, Dr.
No, Evelyn, I wanted to add one more job for Nene to look up as well. It's a UX engineer, right? User experience, it's very critical, and there's a method to it as well. Yeah, I definitely agree with what Trey and Dan were saying. I think that, so for me though, I believe in investing in human capital, like, all the time. You're never too old to learn something, and better yourself as you go. So even as you get into these positions, whether you are security 1 analyst or data analyst 1 or data analyst 4, right? In that engineering level, you should always be looking to improve yourself in your career, and nobody's going to take responsibility for your career except you, right? So you need to, from day one, grab hold of it, know where you're going, and then progress with it. But keep investing in human capital as you go.
Excellent. And one thing I just want to, I want to just stress, and Dr. Lindell shared this at the beginning around, you know, accessing training programs through your local community colleges. You know, there's community-based organizations that are accessible to you that can offer these programs for free, right? So now, you know, yes, there are these like really advanced tech-based training programs that you can pay into, but a lot of them, you know, nowadays you can access them for free, because those programs are being funded through federal grants. for
Right.
instance. So there's a lot of opportunity. Your community colleges have access to this. So, like I want to stress that for the audience. But I want to go back to a point that Daniel was making specifically around social, like building your social network, right? And and we all know that sometimes it's not, quote unquote, and they say it's not what you know, it's who you know. We also know that in this real world right now that we live in, it's the combination of both. You do obviously need to come through the door with experience. You need to have the technical experience to back up, like obviously the relationships that you may have, but building those relationships, right? Like, let's go back into like, how do you build those relationships? And someone from the audience shared how mentorship is key and is critical in this process, specifically when we think about communities of color and granting them access into these jobs, like I can say this for myself. The only reason why like I got into the sector that I did was that, like I started off in politics and, like I worked for a senator who was a person of color, right? And he mentored me, supported me through my journey. And, like I continued to progress in the field, that even when I go back to Albany or when I go to different places, that network that I built, I mean, it goes with me everywhere. Right. But he took me under his wing. So it would be great just to hear from you what role mentorship has played in your career trajectory, and how can job seekers access mentors in the fields that are in high demand right now that you mentioned.
I'll start off. Just a little thing about mentoring, right? One, anyone, and this is the offer that I put out there, anyone that want to learn cybersecurity, they can come to me and I can mentor them to help them reach where they're trying to go. So that's the first thing. I just want to go back for a second around getting the experience and building the relationships, right? I think the youth fresh out of college have a great way and a understanding of how to use networks and building relationships online that, maybe some of the older generations don't have, right? They're used to communicating on Fortnite and Madden and all these things, right? That is a community, that is a part of your network. Now you can take those same type of networking and relationship skills and apply it around a domain that you're learning about with those groups. That is the exact same process, right? So you got your Fortnite community, and then you have your technical community that you're building that relationship with, right? So it's not necessarily a new skill set. It's just almost like you're using that skill that you built in another arena where you're just playing, but now you're playing with technology, or you're playing with ideas around how to manipulate that technology. And that's the genesis of the relationship and the network that you can carry on throughout your career. So they have that skill set. The other thing that I would say real quick is at the end of the day, as you're building this skill set and you're building this network, you have to understand that organizations are looking to extract or understand the value out of it, right? So if you can showcase your value and showcase what you're learning through these networks and on these platforms, that's going to have employers seeking you out.
Can I jump on that? So I think that's great, right? And I call them, the word I use for it is to own it, right? So if you are what I call a subject matter expert in whatever game, right? You could create a blog and own your, expertise by disseminating that information. Blog about it, right? Write about it. Explain why, talk about, the technical aspects of the game itself, not the, talk about the usability if you want to be a usability expert, or game designer, right? So game design is usually built around, that whole concept of the usability and the things there. Forget about all the math that goes behind the scenes. But as a game designer, you can talk to that. And you could own it, right? And they'll seek you out. I agree 100%. Same if you are in a field, insurance, right? Talk about it in terms of the insurance. Use the taxonomy, use the language that you would be trying to attract a senior person in insurance about, or an accounting person, or even if it's healthcare, right? Actually, that's one field, Evelyn, that's huge out there today. That's looking for cybersecurity experts, and data scientists. So if you look into like switch into a career field, I think healthcare, not just given the times that we're in, but it's going to continue to climb out. So definitely, definitely own it, right? Make sure that they see that it's your subject matter expertise that you are disseminating, and then they'll come to you to engage with.
Something that's interesting just for everyone, like just to reiterate something is that, tech jobs are in every industry, right?
That's
So
right.
let's just I think it's something that like some of us haven't really grappled with, but the reality is like, even when you think about agriculture, for instance, right? Like, because I work with a lot of groups upstate, and they're like, okay, well, none of our young adults want the jobs that we have. I'm like, well, why don't you like help them get some of those tech-based jobs in the agricultural industry, right? Maybe they don't want to be on the fields, but when we think about, you just shared like healthcare, right? Like, every single industry has some tech-based component to it, right? Like, which, obviously can be combined with data and analytics and so forth. But it does. And because that's where we're headed. So I thought it was just interesting to point that out. I think, just switching gears a little bit, right? In terms of how we can increase awareness, right? So we talked, I think this is also really important because, people need to understand that these opportunities are available. They need to understand that they can access, the training. So how do you feel, this can happen? Like, how can, specifically, you guys are in the field, there's individuals in the audience that are actually working with young people directly, and they're in contact with like different populations who are seeking these opportunities. How can we increase awareness?
I'll kick off with this one because this is something that we're experiencing right now in real time, and I always just try to remember that the best marketing is telling a story. And when we're trying to get these jobs across to our members and our demographic, we have to do it in a way where they relate to the story. And that story then needs to depict what the job description is and what the potential career is in that. And it can be a little difficult at times because there is a disconnect between the appeal to these jobs. Some people in our communities might look at a data scientist or a UX engineer and may not fully comprehend and just think it's too complicated. But then there's other positions that may be in a similar industry or a salary range that isn't so complicated, maybe in a different skill set. So we're framing these stories and these opportunities in a way that is clarifying to them, and not as a simple platform, but just we're not confusing the message with what we're trying to portray, because that's the disconnect between these corporations, institutions, and our communities. And so we're the analysts that are in the middle and the bridge. We can't be confusing as well. And that's one thing that I'm seeing. And that's when when we were first, building these bridges and getting these contracts, I recognized quickly that we were just getting as confusing and convoluted as they were. And so we simplified our message. We simplified the landing page. If you want to submit to this job, submit your resume right here. It wasn't very difficult. And so just making sure that the marketing is a very appealing and clarifying story.
Yeah, I think there's always been a pretty good narrative out there around what, again, cybersecurity has an impact on our life when we see breaches and different things like that, right? But I think just as parents and as leaders, just trying to instoke that curiosity factor, right? We know that we had a big outage with T-Mobile a couple of days ago, right? Like, why did that happen? How do we prevent this, right? Like, just this being curious about what's going on out there. And that can give you a gateway into these different communities that offer not only the mentorship, but an opportunity to launch that career. So I would just say be a little bit more curious about what's going out there. I think the stories and the narratives are very important as far as attracting youth to the ideas of what people do to earn a living, and a pretty good living, and a great lifestyle. I think we can kind of showcase that a lot. People don't realize that, cybersecurity professionals make more than surgeons in a lot of times, right? So same thing with data analysts and all these other tech factors, right? So we see these narratives being played out in certain communities, but we need to highlight those narratives in our communities. And that goes a long way, right? You see these characters on television as the villain that's sitting behind a keyboard and they're making millions of dollars on the bad side, but you have to realize someone is doing the exact same thing on the good side, right? So that's a narrative that we can really highlight and play up to.
Yeah, no, excellent. And obviously, just to, go into that, it's that, it's what's important is that we start early, right? Like we start educating, educating our youth at an early age, right? So that they can understand that this is accessible to them early on, right? And then it's not like we're trying to now sell this to someone who never thought it was even a possibility. Right.
Two of the favorite charts that I always like to show students and teach and parents, right? So it's from, it kind of shows technology from 1970 to 2014. And when the next census comes out, we're going to see more. But it shows you a handful, 3 or 4 jobs that are available or positions. You're either a programmer, you're a systems analyst, right? If you're working with these mainframes back in the day. The industry as it stands today, I love this chart because it shows 20 or 30 different positions, right, that you could get. The second chart that I love to show these parents is that it shows from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the average salary for an IT professional today is $153,000 a year. Right? It is, and I know that's true because I hire people and I pay them that amount today.
Right.
And the other thing too, I've hired and fired enough people in my 31 years to know that our kids could do this, right? And they could do it without a 4-year degree. When it comes to awareness, one of the things that we have to take a personal responsibility for is to, and I mean everyone, right, in our community, stop telling our children that they can't do this. I run a workshop where I had Raspberry Pis and I had about 40, middle school children coming in, and they were chaperoned by some other elder folks, but other teachers came in. But my team and my crew were running the workshop. We're making them see a Raspberry Pi, using it, connected, building out their own Google Voice kit. And the ladies, that were sitting there, one of them said, "Oh, this just isn't for everybody. Some people just shouldn't do it." And that might be true, but don't say that to our children, right? Because it's the first time they're experiencing this. We want them to know that they're just as good, they're just as smart. And what I tell students, right, is that, listen, we're looking for problem solvers, right? So your creative skills, which I think our people are the most creative at, and solving problems just because of who we are and how we grow up. So your problem solving skills are going to separate you from all the other stuff. Okay.
Just to piggyback on that, no one says when social media or playing around with video games or any of these other technologies that's not for them, right? No one says that, oh, it's this Facebook thing that's so hard to figure out, I can't work it, right? Or a tablet, right? If you see a 2-year-old and a piece of technology is like duck to water, they know how to use it. Mm-hmm. So we put out and plant our own biases in our kids. And I had this conversation with my son not too long ago. He says, I don't ever remember learning how to use a computer, right? Because he's always been on the computer, right? So he's never even had that idea that I couldn't learn this thing. That was never a part of his identity.
No, thank you. That's such a great point. And actually something, so I'm gonna now just shift a little bit, but go alongside with what you're saying with our young people, specifically being really good at using technology, right? But what we saw and what we've saw, I mean, excellent, right? Because I have an 11-year-old and he knows things more, he Googles things that I would never Google, or YouTube. But at the same time, we saw a shift right now through the pandemic, and it's that young people are also struggling, right, at the same time with this remote concept. Because, one thing is for you to do it for enjoyment. Another thing is for you now to have to hammer down and work remotely, right? And, it's not just young people, we're talking about adults as well. I can share firsthand, when I took the job that I did, it was a remote job. I was so used to my reporting to a location kind of thing. I struggled for the first year and a half. Like, I was just like, what is this? It was a lot, specifically even like interacting with teams. But one thing I think it's important now, given this like framing that I just provided, and like what you've probably experienced yourselves through the various industries that you work in, how can people actually prepare for the types of jobs that you've discussed, but now prepare to engage in a remote way, right? How to work, like how can they now prepare to engage those jobs remotely? If you can just like dive into that and provide a little context around that, I think it would be great for the audience.
I think like anything else, it's the reps, right? You're not gonna your first webinar, your first Zoom call is not gonna go off without a hitch, right? Again, they already have certain skills that they leverage that we are just picking up. When they're communicating, they normally do a FaceTime with one another, the youth. So FaceTime communication or that facial communication with one another, that's just a part of their life. So I think some of our skill set as as an older workforce, these are some things that we're learning to put a part in our life. Versus the youth, they've always had real-time communication. They always did these FaceTime chats with one another. They're sharing videos back and forth with one another. They were the first to adopt the emoji and the emotional communication behind texting, right? So I think we have to leverage what their natural skill set and things that they've already figured out. And just to kind of pivot as far as working from home, I've been doing it for the last 8 years. And I would say one of the tips that I would give anyone is learn how to take a break, right? Get away from your computer, go outside, actually connect with another human, because these screens, we're communicating, but we may not necessarily be connected.
Anyone else would like to share overall, I think, their experience? Because I think there's another side to this as well, is that you have to like manage your time wisely, right? It's very easy to get caught up into different things, specifically if you're working quote unquote from home, right? I think, when we think about the younger generation and how they've now have to like learn how to manage, like, what advice do you have with that?
I can tell you what we do with our staff. I think you leverage those collaboration tools, right? So whether it's Slack or whether it's Teams, Microsoft Teams, and whatever it is, and we could keep an open collaborative mind, right, when we're working with those. If you're in Slack, you could start a Zoom session, right away with 5 characters and a return button that everybody could hop onto that you need that team on. Same with Teams, right? But being collaborative in those tools, I think, is a great way to work, especially when you're working remotely and everybody's all over the place. So we take advantage of those tools, whether it's Teams or Slack or whatever the platform is. I think also just having the discipline to make sure that, you treat it as if you're going to your office, right? So if you're working from home, treat it as if you're getting up, you're getting dressed, and you're going to an office, and plan your day just like you would do any day. I ask my team to make sure that we have stand-up meetings. So every morning, this is what we're doing today. This is what we did yesterday. This is what we're doing today. This is what we're going to do next week, right? So it's a simple 5-minute conversation. And then as a manager as well, my managers, sometimes they would schedule it impromptu, but they also have stand-up, coffee breaks where they get the team together. Everybody gets their little coffee mug, and then just kind of break up the conversation a little bit, and then coffee breaks over, back to work. So I think those are just some of the things that keep the momentum going.
So for the providers that are, because it seems that there's a couple of providers that are on, like that are part of our session right now. Based on what you're sharing, it seems that this should be included, right? Like how to like help people adjust to a remote work setting should be included as part of your training.
Oh, absolutely. Collaboration tools, absolute must. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Slack, but Slack is it's very good. It's free. Microsoft Teams are a little bit pricey, but if your company can afford it, it's a great way to share and show and just, be ongoing, with that as well. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be on a team session where we're doing a hackathon between folks in Dallas, New York and Chicago, where we're all together, and Kansas City, where we're all on the same team site with breakout rooms, and we're gonna have a full day of activities like that. And then you definitely want to learn those tools. You definitely want to use them, and become experts at them from now and in the future. And again, you don't need a computer science degree to learn it. These are just easy, well written, intuitive tools that are online.
I just want to add too is that the younger generation definitely has these skills already embedded in them because, like as Trey said, the interactions daily. But what we also see is a negative impact that we have to be very mindful of, and this is what we're always telling the up and comers: is the number one skill set we believe is the ability to focus. And so because they're constantly on social media and at the same time possibly now doing virtual work or studying, you're going back and forth from many different projects, and that actually hurts your ability to have the focus on the task at hand and do it, at the best level you possibly can. Because, back in the day, your mother used to say, or someone used to say, can't you multitask? And we thought multitasking was good.
Yeah.
Now we're getting information and research that says it's not productive. It's actually hurting your brain and your ability to, put out the best product that you possibly can. So especially with tech and the industries that we're talking about now, for the next generation, the ones that are going to be able to focus and maybe allot 40 minutes, 20-minute break, 40 minutes, 20-minute break, like just put in type of regimens within their virtual workspace. Those are the ones that are going to be able to excel and far excel, much of the stuff that we've been able to accomplish in society in general.
That's excellent. Yes. Like I think, just to go off of that, there are obviously really great benefits in terms of working remotely. And then there's huge downsides, right? So we talked about the fatigue, right? That could happen. And you guys gave some great practical advice around, taking breaks so that you can, obviously recharge again. But if you can just share with us, a little bit more around what the benefits will be specifically because, and those challenges, because what we're going to see right now, and as it relates to young people, recent college graduates, a lot of them are not going to go to an office, right? They're going to go directly now into a remote job. And they didn't have an opportunity to get trained. They didn't have an opportunity to really have someone walk them through this process, because guess what? Maybe some of their mentors are walking through this process themselves, right? For the first time. So can you just share the benefits, the struggles and some more pointers? I think that would be great for the audience to hear.
So I'll just give you kind of my top three. It's been a game changer for me to stand up. I'm at my stand-up desk now. That's helped me out a lot, right? So those breaks would be the second thing. And as sad as it sounds, what you eat, your diet at home, you can graze and get, eat all the junk food you want, and you'll realize your productivity goes down. And then as Dan was saying, time blocking, right? Understanding the task that you're trying to achieve. Yes, it takes a couple of hours. You can break that up in 30-minute increments and still have a very productive day. So that I would say those are kind of my summary, standing up, watching what you eat, and time blocking.
Yeah, Evelyn, I would like to add just two other items that, when you're working from home, that I think is critical for staff as well as you and everything else. I would say that calendar planning is probably critical, right? And making sure your calendar is right from the day before, 2 days before, the week before, I think is even more critical. And, for someone like me, who I have 4 different calendars, from my teaching to my consulting business, to my Springboard business, to my other stuff, it's so critical to be on point with each of those. And then the second thing, don't just book your calendar back to back. Make sure you have time in there to prepare for that meeting. It's very different, right? So you want to make sure that you book time to prepare for whatever meeting or whatever presentation or whatever you're going to be in, and keep the interaction going. If you are in a business meeting, you're working for a company, communicate, whether that's direct online, unmute yourself and speak up. It shows that you are engaged, right? And the engagement level is really important for our young folks today. And don't be afraid to communicate. Send out follow-up emails, send out follow-up communication. What I would say is, though, don't fall into the trap that this is not a professional environment. If you are used to talking to your friends online and, treat this as a professional environment, show up as a professional, right? And speak like a professional all the way through and talk to your expertise.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's one of the biggest things that I'm seeing right now. And I think it's going to be very difficult for the next generation to translate that in a professional way, because when we get a lot of emails, it's almost as if we're getting a text message. It'd be a hi with a, lowercase h. And then just going right into the sentence with no spaces. And, it's very much all over the place. And you can tell when you're getting an email or an outreach from a professional person that is used to the conventional or traditional workspace. And so I don't know how much of that is going to translate into this new workspace. And, but as all these generations are combined, it is very much necessary. And you have to be mindful of that. And the email communication, especially if you're an independent contractor, like we were talking about with regards to agile talent, and you're getting these contracts and workforce because of your skill set, the way that you introduce yourself, the way that you respect introductions, I've seen that happen a lot where I'm introducing someone and they won't respond for 3 days, 4 days. And so it's things like that if you do that in person, it's like shaking someone's hand, with your left hand or not looking at them in your eyes. So it's things like that we have to communicate to the very young millennials and the Gen Zs, that there is still workplace etiquette, and you can turn someone off by a negative email just by not knowing what's proper. So we definitely need more education on that, because that frustrates me when we do email introduction and I have to reintroduce so that the people, don't forget to acknowledge each other, and so.
Yeah. And that's a lost opportunity at the end of the day, right?
Yeah,
because it's like, it's like take advantage of the moment right then and there.
Exactly.
I think so with that, someone asked earlier on around, soft skills, right? So Flora actually asked, what do you think are the 3 top soft skills our younger generation need to be successful in just about any field? You guys just shared like a plethora of different soft skills that young people need to have. And what I'm hearing is that there's a difference, right? Because, there are soft skills that, like you said, in terms of like, oh, you need to be able to communicate effectively. Like, what does it look like to interact with your manager or whatever it may be? Shake their hand, do this, right? So there were soft skills that you needed to have before all this happened and we went remote, right? And then now they're going to be a whole new sets of skills, of soft skills that people need to develop as a result. So, any ideas and insight, like if you can now, even though we've talked about it, but I think it's important to kind of reiterate it under this framing, and just remind the audience of what are the skills that, youth, anyone, right? An adult, what are the things that they need in order to function? It can be soft skills that they have to gain remotely, or just the regular set of soft skills.
Right. I'll kind of leave this one off. Video etiquette, right? Make sure that you don't have crazy things going on around you. Just even having that quiet place where you can take that conference call or video chat. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but you need to have a space where you can communicate and not be distracted. And I think that not being distracted goes right along with, working from home and being able to have those time blocks and focus. So to me, I feel like that's the one thing that they can do is have that dedicated space where they take the calls and kind of help their family, help themselves by letting you know that, hey, when my door is closed, I'm on a call, and be mindful of that. So I think that's one of the things that I try to instill in my little ones, and then they know when daddy's door closed, 9 times out of 10, he's performing or working working on something that works. He's on the camera.
Yes, I think that's key, right? Now, I think we did cover a lot of those soft skills. You know, we talk about communication and all those other items. One of the things that's really important, I think, especially for our community, is presence, right? And there's leadership presence. So doing that in person is a lot easier. You know, you're in a meeting, if you're in charge, a lot of times I will stand up, right, and demonstrate my presence, or someone in that position, they will, you know, so there's different ways to do it. However, in a remote session, right, in this virtual world that we live in, presence is still very important. So you need to make sure that you are confident in front of the camera. You need to make sure that you are speaking in the right tone and in the right manner for which the context allows you to be. And you need to be able to listen and ask the right questions as you're going through this exercise. And a little bit more patience definitely helps. But you have to think about all the things that you need to do around establishing your presence within that organization as you're continuing to work with them.
Yeah, I love that, Dr. Lindo, because presence too translates in words and even in the virtual conversations. But again, to go back to the email, sometimes you could tell when somebody is maybe a little insecure or not as confident in the subject matter, that they'll, you know, send a very long email when it could have been a paragraph or maybe 2 paragraphs. And that's very important because a lot of people don't have the time and the ability to read in like a book in an email. And that's not respecting those individuals' times. And even to go back into mentorship, a lot of times when you reach out to people, they want to know directly and quickly what it is you're asking them. What are you presenting? What am I doing this for? You know, and that has a lot to do with confidence, and also has a lot to do with preparation and understanding what you're doing in your presence in that virtual meeting or even in that email conversation. A lot of times too, if it's, you know, understanding CCing and BCCing, which is, you know, a lot of people still don't fully grasp that, you know, and respecting other people's email lists. And so there's just a lot of different things when it comes to being mindful, but presence is huge because it's amazing how much that translates into a virtual world still.
Yeah, it does, right? So your communication style, right? Persuasive, impactful, questionable, your opinion, like with confidence, right? Striking that balance between them listening, all of those things matter in a virtual world.
No, excellent.
It's funny. I just want to say this. I was cracking up because I always had a problem with this, but I'm not doing it anymore. I saw a meme and it said, you know, can we stop saying it's a pleasure to meet you? That's the only time that we're meeting each other now. And so I thought that was hilarious because I would always say that back in the day, you know, like, oh, nice to meet you. But now I just say, nice to meet you. And those are little things that we really don't fully comprehend yet. You know, is it okay to do that? Is it not okay to say that? So things like that, too, are very interesting.
I usually use, it's a pleasure connecting with you. I'm like, because I find like it's just an easier way to do it. But, you know, I have to say, so we, you know, if we're about to like, you know, hand this back over to Erica, but before we do, it would be great if you could just leave us off with any golden nuggets that you think, you know, beyond all the wealth of information that you shared, but is there anything else that you would like to leave the audience with?
I'll start off, you know, just quickly. I think this is an immense moment for a transfer of value and skill sets and wealth. And a lot of companies and industries are going to be looking for those individuals that have the ability to focus, have the ability to tap into their discipline and understand who they are and understand what it is that they want to do. And so I think now, more than any other time in human history, is an opportunity for those that may have been starting off in very bad situations or coming from, you know, backgrounds where they don't have generational wealth to gain generational wealth in a new career or in a new industry or as an entrepreneur. So, you know, definitely double down on all the resources that are available in this virtual world, in this virtual economy, because it's, I mean, you can get into, you know, wealth that our generations haven't seen in a way that has never been available to humans before, ever before.
Right. I would say approaching things with the right attitude, being curious about the world that we live in today. And once you have a better understanding of what you're curious about, seek mentorship in that particular arena. So attitude, curiosity, mentorship.
Yeah, I would say, Evelyn, that, well, first of all, if there's anybody on the call or, someone who's interested in becoming a data scientist, please have them reach out to me. If they're ready to work and they're motivated, I will connect the dots for them all the way through, all the way through to an internship for them. The second thing I would say is that, in this environment, it's, like Trey and Dan had said before, this is how we've been working for 10, 15 years. This is not a new normal for us. This is just normal, right? So embrace it and take advantage of all the resources that are out there to learn it. And stop telling yourself that you can't do it, right? There's so many people out there doing it. You can do it too. Just engage, be prepared to work, and don't be discouraged.
Excellent, thank you. So, sorry, Dan, I forgot that I left you out. Or did you? I'm like,
No, I started.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm like, wait a minute, we're almost done. No, I just wanted to share, like, just for the audience, just so that you could be aware that they're obviously, they've made themselves accessible to you all. Their information was provided in a lot of the materials that was sent out. I know that Erica will share out more, but take Dr. Lindo's offer. Definitely reach out to him if you need help and you need assistance. And for the providers that are in the audience as well, it's great to bring in speakers, at this caliber to speak and engage with your participants. So it's been a pleasure, serving with you guys on this panel, and I really look forward to connecting with you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Erica.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody that attended this session 1 of this 3-part workforce development series, where the focus is on working in the new normal and really focusing on job training, new skills acquisition, and just getting tips on how to work effectively in the remote world. For me, this is really exciting. I grew up with a father who had, this was kind of what he did. I said, like, my father was like running his own BOCES, or like apprenticeship program, just not being paid for it, because he would literally drive around in his truck, and when he would go to clients' houses to do his electrical work, there would be like a little boy or even a young lady, and their parent would be like, hey, they would kind of see him fiddling around with the screwdriver and ask for help. And in some cases, he actually took a great deal of young men, including my 2 brothers and people in the neighborhood, on his truck and taught them a skill, right? So what similar to financial services and IT, is something's always going to break in someone's house. It's unfortunate, right? But your lights go out, your AC, right? It's hot now in New York and in other cities. So you may need AC, and then in the winter you need heat. So that's something that's always in demand. And now, regardless of what my brothers, what industry they work in, one's a firefighter, one's in entertainment, they still have that skill, right? So if all the stuff that's broken loose, somebody still needs AC. Somebody still needs electrical work. And that's kind of what I wanted to bring to the table with this first session, but really with this webinar series, is understanding about attaining skills that if you want to work for someone, or if you want to start your own business, like, are able to allow you to be self-sufficient. And they really are more in a career entrepreneurship standpoint versus just feeling like you're just taking an hourly job that has no upward mobility, and it will dead end at some point and you'll have to leave and then go find another job. So I just want to say thank you again. This is part 1. So if you go to visionstreetresearch.com and click on the events tab, you will see the link to the other 2 sessions. The next one is next Wednesday, June 24th, same time, same place. So 1 p.m. on Zoom. You do need to register. We will have Trey Anders will be back again, and then we'll have Flora Quick, who actually is has been in the chat room, and we'll be really drilling down about, okay, now let's say you've attained the skills, how do you effectively market them? Because some people have challenges with communicating how they've actually contributed to an organization, or the actual skills that they have to do the job. So Trey and Flora, moderated by myself, are going to have a deep discussion about what should and should not be on your resume, how to write an effective cover letter, because sometimes the cover letter is the entree to the resume. So if you bomb the cover letter, they never see the great resume that Flora or whoever else has helped you with, because you didn't communicate why that she'd even open up the next document or scroll to the next page. And then the last of this series is July 1st. And that's all about preparing for the interview. So now you've gotten the skills. Trey and Flora and Daniel and Steven have now helped you make a perfect resume and cover letter. And now they call you in for the interview. And guess what? The interview is remote. So all those skills that you learn about what you do when you walk into the interview, you're not walking into anywhere. You're sitting down in front of Zoom and have to figure out how do you sell yourself effectively in a video and understanding the dynamics of that. So we'll have Flora as well as Elaine Gross, who has a job opportunity now that she'll be interviewing for, which is why she's on the panel, as well as a retired HR professional, Kay Hill, who also will be giving tips about how to be effective in interviews. So like I said, go to visionstreetresearch.com and click on the events tab, and you'll see how to sign up for those 2 events. The other thing that we've added is a job seeker board. So if you go to Vision Street Research and /job seeker, I put the link in the actual chat. If you go to that, you'll see some current listings that we're aware of. If there are other jobs that you'd like us to post, we will, and then we'll include it in our email blast that we've been sending out to folks. Other than that, I just truly appreciate everybody participating. You can access both of these all individuals on this chat. They're very accessible. Through LinkedIn. Trey with CyberAmp is actually one of Vision Street Research's partners. So if you go to our workforce development tab and click on CyberAmp, it'll take you to the page and kind of walk you through how you can sign up for his training or get his assistance, or even get him to help you in terms of mentorship. But I hope you have a great day. This is Workforce Wednesday day. So hopefully after being on this webinar for hour 15 minutes, you will take Trey's advice, because I'm going to do it, and get up and go get some fresh air.
That's right.
We've been sitting for far too long.
Yes, I agree.
So step away from the computer. Hopefully you did not overbook yourself per Dr. Lindo and make things back to back so that you can go get some air. But thank you again to this fabulous panel. Thank you to Evelyn for moderating. And I hope to see you all next Wednesday. And yes, this is being recorded. It will be emailed out to all attendees for you to share with your network. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe out here. Yeah.